Hello, hello, friends. In the novel I'm explaining today, there's an eye-catching plot. The female protagonist, ready to start university and a new life, is kidnapped by strangers on the night of a family gathering. Her adoptive parents seem to be hiding huge secrets, all related to her mysterious background. How will the protagonist find her place in this unfamiliar world? Follow my interpretation to explore this mysterious story together. Chapter 1. Welcome home, Princess. Cheers. I clinked my glass of sparkling water against my two best friends' alcoholic beverages. Their eyes glazed with a mixture of intoxication and emotion as we toasted for the final time that night. Tomorrow, we'd each be embarking on our separate journeys to the places we'd call home for the next 4 years. Samara, with her outgoing personality and persuasive charm, was New York, bound for culinary school, while the soft-spoken and brilliant Lily was headed to Harvard. It was a bittersweet farewell, knowing we wouldn't reunite in person until summer break, although I felt a flutter of nerves about starting my new life tomorrow. I was confident in my decision to choose a college closer to home. Being only an hour away from my mom and younger brothers meant I could easily be there if they needed me, or vice versa. My responsible nature and close family ties made this choice feel right. College had always been a beacon of excitement for me, from my earliest memories of visiting my uncle on his college campus and witnessing his unbridled joy, to the countless bedtime stories my parents shared about their own college days and how they met. I knew that whatever tomorrow brought would be a pivotal moment in my life. A tingle of anticipation coursed deep through me as I reflected on finally discovering my purpose. I wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps and become a healer, to help people just as he did in his medical profession. Samara's grip on my hand tightened, pulling me back to the present moment. "You won't even have one drink with us. NYZ, she pouted, brushing her long blonde bang from her slightly unfocused eyes. "It's our last night, and you're being a party pooper." I tapped my nails rhythmically on the circular table, flashing her my most mischievous grin. "You know I don't drink, Sammy," I reminded her. "Besides, I don't want to show up to my first lectures absolutely hammered and hungover." "I can't believe you start so soon," Lily chimed in, her voice barely audible above the din of the crowded bar. "We don't start for another 2 weeks. It sucks for sure." I sighed, running a hand through my dark hair. "But at least I get out earlier than you guys. Who knows? Maybe I could use those 2 weeks to come visit you two on the East Coast." Samara squealed, clapping excitedly at my proposed idea. Lily smiled softly at my words, tracing the condensation of her glass with the tip of her finger. Her eyes drifted past me for a second and then widened as she inhaled in a breath so quickly she started coughing as a spasm racked her throat. Samara, the best friend any girl could ask for, looked over at Lily in bewilderment for slapping her hand against our friend's back as hard as tiny hand could. "Holy crap," Lily rasped, still looking at something behind me. "I think those are the sexiest men I've ever seen in my entire life." Samara's nose wrinkled at Lil's words. "Don't you have a girlfriend? I thought you didn't like men." "I do have a girlfriend," Lily shot her a fierce look, "and just because I'm dating a woman doesn't mean I can't appreciate the sexiness of the opposite gender. And let me tell you, if I was dating Holly, I'd definitely switch teams and ask one of those two out. Damn are they fine." Samara's eyes widened at her words, weaving her head around as she tried to find men that Lily was talking about. I choked on a laugh at my best friend's antics, wishing I could see what the big deal with these men were if it had my very in love with her girlfriend friend wanting to switch teams. Samara must have finally found who Lily was talking about because her jaw suddenly dropped down to the small table we were occupying. "Hot damn," she nearly shouted in my ear. Lily didn't do them justice. "Those men are delicious." "Oh God," Samara groaned. "He has dimples." The blonde one just smirked in his dimples. "Kill me now." "You two already?" Side pushed her face away from mine, laughing at them both. "No man can be that good looking." "You're wrong there, sister," Lily murmured. "They're gorgeous." "I've never been so jealous of you staying behind than I am right," Sam said half jokingly because if those hotties are going to the same college you are, I might just have to transfer back. A pricklet of awareness sparked at the back of my neck as I felt 3 sets of eyes watching me. I turned my head from side to side, scanning as much of the room as I could. I saw nothing or no one staring at me. Everyone too busy either drinking or engaging in conversations that would probably lead to a night of regret. I startled when both Sam and Lily gripped each of my hands, sucking in sharp breaths. "HS coming over here," Samara breathed, fixing her hair and low-cut top. "Oh shit." Lily hissed at the same time, "So is his friend." Suddenly, 2 large presences at my back had my hackles rising. "Ladies." A smooth, rich, and cheery voice said from the left of me, "What a wonderful night to celebrate, isn't it?" The only thing my 2 friends could do was gape and blink holish lie at the newcomer, something that has never, in the history of knowing these 2 since I was 5, happened before. I shot them a quizzical look. "I'm sorry," I intervened, still giving my friends weird looks, but apparently they forgot their manners tonight. The words died on my lips as my eyes locked with vibrant green ones. A's shot through me. His brilliant smile faltered a little as he took me in, his shoulders stiffening ever so slightly in surprise. To saw he was handsome was an understatement. This man was absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. His blonde, medium, wavy-length hair was cut neatly and in a way where it was polished but at the same time didn't make him look frumpy. He was tall, super tall even for my 510 frame, and you could tell from the way the stylish clothes hugged his frame that he was fit and played some type of sport that required a lot of running. While he was scrutinizing me with the same look of intensity I used on him, I took my time to look at his friend. This time, I was the one to suck in a sharp breath as I found his amber eyes already observing me. This guy was as equally stunning as his friend, just as tall and broad-shouldered. While his friend was all light and laughter, this guy was all seriousness, the complete opposite. He was dark and brooding and mysterious. His dark hair was tousled and disheveled in a way that made me think it was for fashion purposes, more like he ran his hand through his hair as an afterthought. When he shifted his body to lean against the table my friends and I were occupying, I peeked some of his tanned and tattooed colored skin from underneath his long-sleeved shirt. He stared at me with the same intense look that overcame Blondie's face when our eyes met, his face remaining expressionless the whole time. Another's ings apt through my body at the look. Blondie recovered from his stupor quickly and plastered on the charm rather thickly. "What are you 3 fine ladies doing at a dive like this?" he asked, winking pointedly at Samara. "Surely you 3 have a runway to be on." I snorted at his words as Sam and, surprisingly, Lily let out giggles instead. He turned his attention on me, his eyebrows raised. "That's the best line you got." I snorted again, and this time, I could have sworn I saw Mr. Dark and broody-ass lips twitch at the sound. My brothers had better pick up lines than that. And fair 6 and 8. Instead of getting flustered or angry at my snarky words, like most guys his age would have done, Blondie just smiled at me. Freaking smiled. And damn it, even his smile was perfect. "Your brothers must hit it off with the ladies all the time then." I laughed at that, nodding my head. "If you count their 60-year-old babysitter and her friends as hitting it off, then sure. They do fantastic in the ladies' department." Blondie's chuckle made me squirm in my seat. "The name's Cassie Ann, or Cass, or Ian for short. I don't really care what you call me." He held a hand out to me. "How about I call you mine?" Samara murmured low, but apparently not low enough for me or the 2 men next to me to hear. Cassie Ann's lips twitched at my friend's words. His friend smirked at him. I kicked Sam in the shin just as I shook Cassie Ann's calloused hand out. She howled, grasping the damaged limb. "What the hell was that for?" "Ignore her, Ian," Lily said, shaking his outstretched hand next, and redirecting the conversation away from me. "She's an idiot when she has tequila in her. That's her pick of poison." He whistled low, shaking my friend's hand. "She's a small thing as it is. What does it take? Like 2 shots? Before she's gone to the wind." 3.5, Sam giggled, "plus some of those drinks that taste like fruit punch." He turned his eyes towards me. moving just a tad bit closer. "How about you, princess?" he murmured, his green eyes blazing. "How many shots does it take for you to start giggling for me?" My eyes narrowed at the trailer. "I need more than shots for me to giggle like a schoolgirl," lied, bedpanting, "especially for someone like you." Cassian's mouth dropped open. "What's that supposed to mean?" I startled at the deep rumble of laughter from behind me, my eyes flickering to Cassian's friend as he snickered at his friend's epic failure. "You better get your friend and leave us alone with those cheesy one-liners." I motioned to a still speechless Cassian, who was drilling holes into my head with his eyes. "Or else, I won't be responsible for what comes next." He smirked down at his muscles bunching underneath his shirt as he shifted closer. "What comes next?" His voice was like silk, deep and drumbly and a little scratchy. Like he didn't really use it a lot unless it was absolutely necessary. "I'd like to be fully prepared to know what I'm getting into in the face of danger." "He gets a drink in the face," I threatened twice. Once for annoying me and the other for calling me princess. Cassian's friend weighed out his options for a minute, mulling over the possibility if I would seriously embarrass his friend in public. "The answer is that I totally would." He must have saw the resolve on my face, because in the next minute, he was swiping both my drink and his protesting friend away from us. "That's mine." I reached for my lemonade to no avail. Cassian's friend smirked down at me before raising my glass to his lips and locking eyes with me, drinking it all down in one gulp. When he was finished, he licked full lips. "Lemonade," he said in barely concealed surprise. "Plain old lemonade." With those final words, they disappeared as quickly as they came, ignoring my snarling and curses. A throat-clearing snapped my attention back to my friends. Lily was looking at me with a barely concealed grin while Samar was straight up gawking. "Did you know those guys?" "Obviously I didn't." I grumbled. "If they had to come over and introduce themselves to us, they sure acted like they knew you." I scoffed at them. They were douches. But even as I said that, something deep down inside of me disagreed. "They came over for you. You know that, right?" Sam said. I snorted. "Yeah, right. It's kind of true, NYZ," Lily added. "They only had eyes for you. They basically ignored the two of us." "It didn't help that you cowled in form words," I reminded them. Lily shook her head, motioning for the waitress. "That didn't matter. Their eyes never strayed from you for long." "So which one do you like?" Sam squirmed in her seat because I think me and Dian were really vibing. I shot her a look, but she just raised her brow. "What? You like him instead?" I said nothing and she pouted. "Can I at least call dibs on the one you don't want?" I shot her an annoyed look. "I'm not calling dibs on anyone." The waitress whirled over to us, dropping down 3 new fresh drinks and the check they had paid stamped over it in red. I frowned. "Mum, I think you gave us the wrong bill." "And we didn't want any more drinks," Lily chimed in, reaching for her purse. The waitress shook her head. "The bill's already been taken care of." My eyes slid to Samara, who was happily sipping on her 7th drink of the night. She paused her sipping. "Don't look at me. I'm broke right now." I narrowed my eyes at Lily, who narrowed them right back at me. Why would I reach for my purse to pay for something I already paid for? "You're sneaky like that," I shrugged. "Plus, you hate when I pay for stuff." She rolled her eyes. "I only hate it because of how little you actually have left of your savings." I winced at her statement, reminding myself that all the books and resources I needed to pay out of pocket for school would be worth it in the end. Saving Levs would be worth it. "Then who paid?" we asked the waitress. "Some tall, preppy blonde guy." She shrugged, pulled out a wad of cash and asked me to send you another drink and pay off your tab. I was going to question it. Money is money. Samara reached for Lil's Cosmo when I slapped her hand away and handed her my lemonade. "Drink that before you puke over Lil's car like you did last time." She groaned at me but then dutifully drank the refreshing drink. I glanced at my watch, grimacing at the time. "We better get going," I said. "Early start to my new beginning." Chapter 2, capital T for Trouble. Phoenix. I tightened my tactical vest onto my chest before slipping on my face mask and helmet onto my head. The mission was supposed to be fairly easy. Go in, rescue the girl, separate her from her captors, and bring her back to the academy unharmed, whether she wanted to come or not. I would lead the small non-shifted tac team into the house and breach the doors. making first contact. Atlas and Cass would cover us from both angles in the woods, and much in case she managed to slip through our fingers or shift and try to take us on. Considering who her father was, the girl very well may have had the capability to not only destroy us but also wreak havoc on this whole entire street. Everything was accounted and well thought out for except for the girl herself. The moment Atlas and Cass came back to the surveillance vehicle from the night before at the bar, I knew immediately that something was wrong. Not only from their set jaws and flushed skin, but also from their rigid shoulders and snappy attitudes. When they refused to talk to me about what happened and went wrong, I was on high alert. Their refusal could only mean one thing: that this girl was trouble with a capital T. Plain and simple. I've known both Atlas and Cass since we were children. Our parents often bringing us to the Penta meetings to not only make sure we were well acquainted with one another as future leaders, but also to make sure that we knew who and what against when the time came to take over their positions. This keep your enemies close but your friends closer mentality was ingrained in me so tightly that I gritted my teeth at the memory of the many lessons my father gave me when he thought I was being softened to caring for those he considered would one day be our enemy. I shook my head at the memories, clearing my thoughts. I needed my head on straight for this, considering I was put in charge of the whole operation. Something that was rarely done except for rare occasions in which the Penta didn't want the entire shifter community to know about just of yet, considering that this particular heir has been missing for 18 years. It's say that this information would stir up heaps of issues throughout the shifter community, putting our already strained community into a spiral of division between the packs. Honestly, we were lucky to find her like we did. Having a shifter that serves the Penta working in an admissions office out here, recognizing her and those uniquely colored dyes of her that could only belong to the Lupine heir. Blue eyes so light that they nearly looked like the color of snow. Confirmation coming from the blood samples she gave to the University Health Center during her registration period when ran against the DNA of her father. Alpha, Richie, my TAC team and pack member, called out just received word from the Penta members. We can breach as soon as we have confirmation that the girl is here. The girl got home an hour ago and was most likely fast asleep by now. Send Mika, and for confirmation I ordered remind her to not breach. We just need physical confirmation that Chef's still asleep. He nodded at me before barking orders to the rest of the team. A minute later we received the confirmation we needed. It was now time to breach and rescue the lost heir. Chapter 3: The Lost Heir Nova Nix. I was sleeping peacefully when I heard my 14-year-old bulldog Brutus barking loudly from downstairs. I went back to sleep, not really thinking anything of it considering my poor little guy was blind and deaf and he usually wanted someone to come downstairs and pick him up and bring him into our beds to sleep. Even though he had a perfectly good king-size dog bed tucked in the corner of our small living room. He usually preferred my brother's room because they has lower to the floor beds that he could easily crawl into and out of on a whim. I sighed as he continued to bark for 5 consecutive minutes, throwing the blanket off me, and heading down the stairs to see what he wanted. "Bruby, are you?" I yawned as I called out to him, wondering why he suddenly stopped barking. "Where are you, baby, are you?" A creak sounded from my right as I cooed for my handsome boy. "Brutus," I clapped my hands and stomped my feet to grab his attention. "Brutus. Come here, boy." "Nothing." I frowned. Usually Brutus came to me when I stomped, wanting to cuddle as much as he could with my brothers before the bus came to pick them up. A creak sounded to my right and I sighed in relief. "Come here, baby." I followed the creaking floorboards. "Where are you?" The breath stuttered in my throat as I took in the bright yellow eyes in front of me, not belonging to my sweet dog. I gasped as the little light from the street lamp in front of our house streamed in from the window, showing me what creature those yellow eyes belonged to. A big-ass wolf. How did a wolf get into our tiny house with a backyard barely big enough to fit a swing set? As soon as I opened my mouth to scream, as it raised its lips and snarl, a gloved hand covered my mouth. 2 hands gripped my arms, forcing my hands behind my back, and zip-tying them together. My mom's shout of surprise along with my brother's screams were the only indication that there were more people in my house and that we were all currently being kidnapped. "We're not here to hurt you," the man who was keeping his gloved hand over my mouth said, his voice smooth, deep, and calming as it could be given the situation. We're here to rescue you. Yeah, right? These people, whoever they were going to sell us or auction us off into the black market or do very bad things to us. I didn't care about myself so much as I did my mom and brothers. They were my priority, and I promised Dad when he died that I would do anything in my power to keep them safe. I whimpered at the thought of failing my dad. My captor must have thought he was being too rough with me because his loose and his grip significantly on my mouth. I'm going to remove my hand completely now, he said slowly. When I do, promise not to scream for help or else he'll be forced to muzzle you. What a dick. I snarled at him, cursing him out as much as I could even though it was muffled by his leather glove. He tightened his grip. If you scream, I won't hesitate to muzzle you, he warned again. Something rose deep within my chest that made me growl at this bastard. It was like an urge I cowed and to ignore control. If you're here to rob us, I hate to break it to you, but we're broke, I snarled. My dad died 5 years ago and we've been struggling to make ends meet. We have nothing of value to you or your buddies. The man towered over me, remaining stock still as he digested my words. That's not true. I froze at his words. Oh God. He was a human trafficker and he was here to sell us on the black market. And we aren't here to rob you, he clarified. Didn't you listen to me the first time? We're here to rescue you. From what? I snarled. Borderline poverty. He ignored my outburst and barked some orders to the other kidnappers. I struggled in his grasp, freezing only when the wolf in front of me let out a little growl. I got it from here, the man said, growling at the wolf. Go patrol the yard. The wolf hesitated for a second before scampering out of the house. My mouth dropped open in shock. Did you just? I twisted my head to look at him, not really seeing much except his eyes considering he was wearing a black ski mask. Did that wolf understand you? He ignored my question, hauling me up and over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Any questions you have will be answered at the academy. What academy? Alpha. We need to leave. Now, someone said from the right of us. 3 vans just tripped the motion sensors. They're coming in fucking hot too. The man holding me swore, barking out more orders to his men. Time to go, princess. He held me up and over his shoulders before I could protest. Let me go. I struggled in his arms. Hey, where are you taking me? Just small whimpers had me snapping my head up at the sound. Using all of the minuscule upper body strength, I had to push myself up on his broad shoulders. He grunted as my weight shifted, readjusting me with ease. My mouth gaped in horror when I saw my younger brothers bound and gagged, sitting on the couch, huddled together as another man in tactical gear ushered them out the door. Mom was nowhere to be seen. The fight immediately left my body as I sagged on the douchebag's shoulder. Please, don't harm my family, I whispered as tears sprung to my eyes. Or go wherever you want, but please, let them go. Sorry, princess, but no can do. He readjusted me on his shoulder once again. They need to answer for their crimes. My brothers are 6 and 8. You asshole. My anger ray inflated as I pounded on his back as hard as I could. Considering my hands were bound, what crimes could they have possibly committed? Not my call, he grunted as I kicked my feet out at him. Take it up with management when we get there. He stopped in front of the back door and placed me on my feet. The blood rushed to my head as little aura appeared in my vision. I tried to blink they away. To no avail. A female voice sounded from a few feet away from us. Near the window above the sink, they're all gassed up and ready to go. Alpha. The man, Alpha, nodded and hauled me closer to him, his grip on my wrist tightening. I glared up at him, annoyed at the fact that he towered over me. He was as tall, way taller than me, and a little taller than those guys I met at the bar the other night. We can make sure you. Before he could finish his sentence, glass shattered and something large hit the floor. Shouts sounded from all around us as bullets fluttered through the air. In horror, I watched as blood and something that looked suspiciously like brain matter splattered all over our old wooden floors, slowly but surely making its way toward me and my kidnapper. The man cursed and tackled me, diving for the floor, and shifting it away where I landed on top of him as we fell. He quickly reversed our positions, so that he was pressing all his weight on top of me, as he covered me from the bullets and broken glass. I grunted and was about to curse him out when our eyes locked and the single breath left in my lungs escaped my chest. Sad blue eyes, the color of aquamarine, blinked rapidly down at me. The color would have been exquisite against his slightly pale skin if not for the sadness behind those eyes. He scanned my face, taking in my features with thinly veiled surprise before leaning down and muttering something in my ear. "You're going to be okay," he said soothingly. "We're going to get you out of here. There's a million fucking bullets belting my house." I snarled at him. "How in the hell are you going to get me and my whole family, my blind dog included, out of here?" "My orders were to keep you alive," he said stoically. "Just you." My eyes widened at his words. "My brothers are 6 and 8, I reminded him, cursing myself when the words came out shaky. "They're innocent, and whatever it is that's going on here, they don't deserve to die." He said nothing, which had my blood boiling even more. "If you don't save my family, I swear on my life from this little academy of yours," I growled, "I'll do everything in my power to not only make this little jobs of yours go but also make every day of your life going forward literal hell." He looked down at me in surprise. "If we save this family, you'll willingly listen to us and comply with my orders?" I gave him a choppy nod. He said nothing, instead choosing to raise a finger to his earpiece and barking out more freaking orders. "Move the family now," he said. "I got the girl. Move. Move now." "Thank you." I exhaled. He remained silent, yanking out his earpiece and letting it hang around his neck. "Flank them," he said suddenly. Lobos got 7 on his side. "Flank them from right like Haas." "Who are you talking to?" I asked, my nose scrunching up in confusion. Shouts sounded suddenly from the outside as the gunfire was redirected elsewhere. My kidnapper sprung up, hauling my ass with him as we headed out the back door. "Did you forget about the people trying to kill us?" "Not us," he yanked on my arm, kicking down our tiny and worn-down backyard fence with ease. He looked back at me as we nearly broke into a sprint, those blue eyes practically glowing. "They're after you." Chapter for Nova nixed me. I reared my head back in shock. "They're after me? Whatever the hell for?" The asshole didn't answer my question, just kept pulling me along deeper into the small forest of my house. I blinked as we approached a weird-looking Land Rover. Only 2 rows of seats in the entire car, as the rest of the room was made specifically for a thick glass-looking cage. I drug my feet and yanked on my hand from his grip. He held on tightly, dragging me towards the back of the car and the glass cage. "I am not going in there." "Yes, you are," he growled. "I saved the family from perishing. You owe me for that." "You didn't read the fine print," I croaked, rubbing the base of my throat as a gnawing suffocation feeling worked its way from my chest. Being claustrophobic was a serious pain in my ass, always creeping up on me at the worst moments. I could never go in Halloween mazes or be in large crowds for fear of an attack happening and me ruining every honest time. I shook my head at his words. "I can't go in there." "Yes, you damn can." He unlocked the door and threw me inside, quickly locking it behind me. "And you go." "In claustrophobic," I whimpered, slamming my fists onto the glass, with no avail of trying to escape. My kidnapper either didn't hear me or didn't care about my current dilemma, choosing to jump in the driver's seat and start up the car as he fiddled with some buttons on the dash. A few moments later, thin white mist from the air vents above me, making me cough loudly as I inhaled the bitter mist. My eyes watered as my head began to feel fuzzy and lightheaded. "Did you do to me?" I wheezed, slumping against the soft carpeted floor. Those sad blue eyes met mine in the rearview mirror, watching my every movement with vivid interest. "You're going to take a nice refreshing nap now," he said, his voice distorted from either the drugs in my system or the crappy car speaker above me. "And when you wake up, you'll finally be back home where you belong." My last thought before I blacked out completed was that I was home, and he was currently ripping me away from the last connection I ever had to my father. The car was still moving as my groggy eyes blinked open. I was still in the damned glass cage and my face was still planted on the outside carpet. My stomach was rolling at this point and I was about 5 seconds away from throwing up last night's dinner. I was about to voice my discomfort to the douchebag driving the car when an achingly familiar voice rumbled through the car. How long will she be out for Nyx? The voice asked, making my eyebrows knit together as my foggy brain tried to remember whose voice I was currently hearing. About 4 more hours, my captor answered before we get to the airport. You'll dose her with another or 2. Did you take into account her status? There was the second voice that my brain knew but held in place because a 2 works for shit on me. I was barely knocked out to hours max before coming to. Don't jinx us, you idiot. A punch sounded through the car as I guess one kidnapper hit the other's flesh. She's unpredictable right now. We really don't know what she's capable of at this point. A scoff sounded. I don't think she's capable of much. What do you mean, Nyx? She didn't even try to shift once. My kidnapper, apparently named Nyx, said gods know she had plenty of opportunities to do so too. With all the fucking chaos going around us, the sharp intake of breaths had my already racing heart beating faster. She can't shift, someone whispered, but if she can't shift, then that means we're going to be stuck on fucking babysitting duty for the rest of our time at the academy. Nyx snat, she can't even fucking take care of herself. What kind of heir can't even shift? We came out of the fucking womb shifting already. She's going to be like a lamb being led to slaughter in there. It's not her fault, a voice barked. She was fucking kidnapped and held captive from her community. Of course that's her ability to shift or do the same shit we're able to do. Let's be real here, Atlas. Another scoff. If she can't shift now, chances are she won't be able to shift in the future. What kind of example will that set for the community? How will they respect her if they don't see her as one of them? Careful there, Phoenix, a growl sounded out. Your prick of a father's true view are showing. Wouldn't want someone in this territory to overhear that and ruin that perfect image of yours. A loud snarl sounded throughout the enclosed space as car skidded to a screeching halt. I grunted and started to prop myself up when an irate voice snarled. You really want to start this shit again right now, Lobo? Nick snarled. Yeah. I really do. Guys. Someone chimed in. I think Chess. Nyx ignored the person's words, choosing instead to bark back. Atlas. Fine, then, he growled. Let's finish this right here and right now. I'm sick of this stupid shit. God forbid the mighty Fenrir is sick of something. He scoffed. For what he says goes. Why don't you do something about it? The guy, Atlas, cut Nyx off again with a sarcastic laugh. Trust me, he could. I would love nothing more than to hand your ass to you on a platter right now. Unfortunately, my father gave me strict orders to not engage with you or your stupid ass on this mission. He wanted minimal mistakes for a mission so important. And you always listen to Daddy. Nyx cooed. How utterly pathetic. Guys. The voice sounded more desperate. At least my father treats me like a human being and not like a puppet, Atlas replied coolly. I've seen strays get more love and affection from strangers than your old man gives you. Guys. The voice growled at the 2 bickering men in front of me. She's awake. 3 sets of eyes snapped to mine, in different states of emotions. Shock, surprise, and amazement. My own eyes widened when I finally placed the voices to faces, because sitting in front of my with their chests twisted in a way where they gazed at my face was 2 guys from the bar, including my captor, who finally removed his face mask. 3 stunningly handsome men gawked at my glaring face, looking surprised that I was up and coherent instead of being halfway comatose. How? Cassie and muttered it at the same time. Phoenix swore and started pressing more buttons on the dash. Only the dark-haired giant, Atlas I presumed, didn't react. He only tracked my movements, watching as I continuously banged on the glass divider that barely separated us by 2 inches. When my gaze tangled with his, I froze, because unlike his unreadable and stoic face, those amber eyes of his were blazing with emotions that raged like a forest fire. The ghost of a smile tilted up at the corner of his mouth, transforming his already stunning face into something that took my breath away. He muttered something so low to the others that I didn't get a chance to hear it. It must have been something snarky because Phoenix immediately scowled while Cassian shot me a contemplative look. More white, mist flowed into my cage, this time at a faster rate, and my lungs felt like they were being smothered. Unfortunately for me, it worked 5 times faster than it did last time. The last thing I remember is glaring at each and every single one of them, vowing to kill them for this. Atlas. Looks like she can take care of herself, I muttered to my friends, watching as the synthetic aconite gas worked its way into the system of the stunning woman in front of me. Not after all. Nick scoffed. This hardly proves anything. I shot him a glare. She was barely out for an hour, I said. No one has ever woken up that fast. We barely just got on the freeway. He started, but I quickly cut him off. Don't lie, I snapped. That shit knocked you out for 4 hours. How about Cass? He glared at me. Cassie and isn't affected much by it. You know why it doesn't work as well on Cass? I shot him a look as Cass peeked over his seat to gaze down at the last heir. How much did you dose her with this time? Nearly triple the amount, Nick grunted, yanking his phone from the center console and dialing a familiar number. I used the whole fucking can. Cass's eyes widened as I barked out, are you planning on killing her before we get her back home? No, you stupid motherfucker, he growled at me. I just couldn't take the chance for her to wake up again so quickly. We still have to get her on the plane and fly her across the wards. Alpha. My ears twitched at the voice on the phone. Nick's third Ricci patiently waiting for his Alpha's orders. Was there something new? Make sure we have an abundant supply of it too before we board. Nick barked into the phone. There's been a recent development with our newest heir here. A brief pause. Alpha. That dose was made specifically for her body weight, Ricci said slowly. If you give her too much. Nick cuts him off. Did I ask for your fucking opinion, Ricci? Asshole, I muttered under my breath. I could practically hear Ricci's wince. No, Alpha. And don't give me unsolicited advice, Ricci, he said. Just ensure that it's there when we arrive. With those final words, he clicked off his cell and flung it out the window. You really think Simone's tracking us? Cass asked. I know they are, he answered. How else would they know our plan for tonight? He looked at us through the rearview mirror. You two should get rid of yourselves too. I don't bring my non-missions. I waved away his concern at Smest and lead in. Besides, I switch it out with a new one every month. Cass sighed, leaning forward to grab his phone out of his tacked gear pants. I just got this one too, he grumbled, ripping the SIM out and throwing the phone out the window like one would throw a frisbee. Now all my words with shifters progress will be deleted. I snorted at his ridiculous obsession with a word game. I don't think they tracked us through our phones. I redirected the conversation. They knew too many details about the mission. You're saying we have a mole? Nick's frowned. The only ones who knew about this mission was us and the team. And the pent the Cassie and added. Nick's reared his head back in shock. What are you saying? I'm saying the same. For years I leaned forward in my seat. Someone in the Penta is corrupt. They're not looking out for the good of our community. They're looking out for the good of themselves. Your father's a member of the Penta, so how can you throw an accusation like that around if your father is a current member? Nick asked. What happens if HE's the one who turns out to be the mole? H is not. And you think one of our parents are? Cass asked, a frown marring his normal happy face. Dude, that's a bit much, don't you think? I don't think your parents are involved, I said, shrugging when Nick let out a humorless laugh. Of course you don't, he said. Just my dad, right? If the shoe fits. Nick growled at me, his surge of power making my own hackles rise as my wolf bristled in the back of my mind. If I was a lesser man, and not an alpha in my own right, I would have cowered away in fear, because as much as I hated to admit it, this man in front of me, my best friend since I was 6 and he was 8, was a scary motherfucker when he was angry. He got this fine, chilling look in his eye, the same one his father got when he was pissed, right before all hell broke loose. You really like to keep poking the bear, don't you, Lobo? Don't you mean Wolf? Cassie Ann snickered quietly from beside me. My lips twitched at the remark. They knew too much, Nick, I said, and up until 3 hours before the extraction, the team didn't know diddly shit. I know I didn't say anything, and I know you two wouldn't either. So then that only leaves the members of the Penta. But that would be treason, Cassie Ann whispered, his comically wide-eyed gaze dancing from Nick to me every few seconds. Who in the Penta would want the Last Lupine heir dead? The question is, who wouldn't want her dead? I asked, my gaze glancing back at the equally beautiful and powerful woman slumbering on the carpeted car floor with her back. She can finally take back the reins as the rightful heir of the Shifters. Chapter 5. Nova Nix. The next time I woke up, I was strapped to a freaking chair in a tiny cream-colored room that sat in front of a 1 way mirror. My breath caught and my throat twitched flicked on and my mother's glare gazed back at me. Her face as red as her fiery red hair. Well, she wasn't glaring. At least not at me. More like at the person currently interrogating her. My kidnapper. Or whatever the hell his weird-ass name was. And Nova Nixisn't the snarky voice in my head snickered at me. I scowled because as much as I hated to admit it, that stupid voice was right. Silently cursing my mom for naming me after the stupid cosmic event that occurred during my birth. For the millionth time, my mother's frustration rang out through the overhead speakers, startling me at how crisp the sound is considering how dingy the room was. I have no what you're talking about. I think you do, Mrs. Street. James, a manila file was slapped down on the metal table in front of my mother, as you can see on page 6. Isn't that you signature on the dotted line? A brief pause. Well, well. Aren't you going to open it? Silence. No, she croaked. Why would I open it? Well, since you're not going to open it, I will. The sound of pages flipping reached my ear. Nova Nix Street. James. Born Thursday, November 20th at midnight. 3 pounds, 8 ounces, dark brown hair, glass color eyes, a small crescent-like mark located on the center of her chest, directly over her heart. Does that seem to ring a bell, Mrs. Street? James. That's my daughter's birth details, Mom croaked, but I don't see how that's relevant. Don't worry. Its relevance comes into play on the next page. I wanted to smack the smugness right off of this dickhead's stupid face as he flipped the page off. Here it is. January 1st. Here's the official record, an original copy of the adoption papers you and your husband signed, taking full custody and responsibility of said baby, now known as Nova Nix Street. Games, when she was found bloodied and abandoned in back of a hospital service exit. My heart stopped beating at his words. I was abandoned. At a hospital's exit. I was. Not my parents' biological daughter. I mean, sure. We didn't really look alike with Mom's natural red hair and Dad's equally pale blonde hair, but I just thought I took after my great-grandma, whose hair was just as dark as my own and had blue eyes like me. And while my brothers did take after each of our parents, I thought it was just a weird genetic thing that happened to me since I was the firstborn. I never would have fathomed the people that raised me, the people I have vivid memories of snuggling on the couch and drinking hot chocolate, or building snowmen together on snowy days, were actually related to me. They never treated me differently, even when my brothers were born, always making sure they reminded me every day of how much they loved me and that we still spent quality time together, which, now that I think about it, was probably their way of easing their guilt. My brain was on autopilot as the interrogation continued. My question is why? Phoenix leaned back in his seat. The utter definition of calm and collected why. When denied by the courts for adoption, did you forge these impressive, high-quality and government-level documents? Why would outstanding citizens such as yourself and your husband go through so much hassle for this child when you could have legally adopted another one? Why take on such a high risk? I think I was suffering a stroke because suddenly it was hard to breathe and a tingling sensation, as if ants were skittering across my face and arm, started up. I was 5 seconds away from either puking, passing out, or suffering cardiac arrest, possibly experiencing all three at the same time, because not only was I not biologically related to my parents, but apparently, I was also kidnapped by them too. If you knew my daughter, you wouldn't be asking yourself why, Mom whispered, tracing what I assumed was the certificate of adoption. Why? Because the moment we locked eyes, I knew she was mine. My mom's watery gaze slipped past Phoenix and I could have swore locked with my own eye. Assume if you know about this, you know everything else about both my family's history. Phoenix inclined his head. Then you should know that my husband was the on-call pediatric resident for the year. She sniffled. He was the first one to care for our baby girl. She was born premature, possibly 29 weeks, and so small she fit in the palms of his hand. As it so happens, I was called into a last-minute shift that night. When someone canceled, she said I was a nurse who happened to be floated to the air that night because they were short-staffed. The moment I saw my husband holding that little girl in his hands, tears in his eyes, through the incubator portals, wires and tubes covering her body from head to toe. I knew she was ours. Nothing or no one. Not even the courts were going to take her away from me. So you devised a way to keep her. I'm not proud of it. She looked away in shame that I knew that the hospital or social worker would look into a married couple that consisted both of a nurse and doctor adopting an abandoned preemie. It wouldn't ask too many questions or do a deep dive on us. It helped that my sister-in-law was a social worker and took on the case herself. She didn't have to, but she'd seen too many cases about neglected babies who needed loving homes and didn't want this child, a child who potentially needed extra care, to suffer from the same fate. And the documents. My husband had a friend from college that was into stuff like, but she shook her head. I didn't ask too many questions because I didn't want to spook them. They were helping us get our baby girl. And once she was officially yours, you decided to move across the country so no one would find you, he concluded, or prosecute you in case someone went snooping and figure out what you've done and who you stole. We moved because the guilt was consuming me alive. Mom shook her head. I could walk into that hospital, surrounded by my friends and coworkers, and face them. How pious of you. Mom's face turned purple. Is this what this whole thing about? My daughter. You kidnapped and brought my children here so you can prosecute me and send me to jail. Phoenix scoffed. I held and give a rat's ass where you rot. Then why am I here? She snarled at him. Why did you kidnap my children? For something I did. Phoenix leaned forward in his chair, his shoulders rigid. You're here because you kidnapped something that didn't belong to you. He sneered at her. You've held her captive for 18 years and her family would very much like her back. Mom froze. Her family. Her real family, he scoffed, not some Stockholm Syndrome lunatic. He stood up and strode to the door, about to open it and leave when Mom's voice rang out. She was abandoned. Mom spoke softly. She had no family. She was. Without turning, he opened the door. That's where you're wrong, he said. She had a community full of them. I was left in that room for an hour. A fucking hour to stew in my thoughts and digest all the information I just learned. Because not only was I kidnapped in the last 24 hours, but I also found out that I was not related to the street. James, the people I thought I were my parents for the last 19 years. And to top all of that shitty stuff, I had to deal with some psychopaths that were chasing me for an unknown reason. A hysterical laugh turned scream bubbled out of my throat. Let me out of here. Let me out of here. You assholes. I yelled. Haven't you done enough to me as it is? Before I could stop it, a single tear streamed down my face, opening the floodgates of emotions I've been trying to hold back since finding out the truth of who I really was. I let my tears fall, not because my arms were tied to the chair and there was nothing I could do to wipe them away, but because I was allowing myself a moment to get all these pent-up emotions out. And once that moment was done and my heart was finished mourning for the simple life we could have lived, when these swirling emotions inside of me were processed properly, I would come back with a vengeance. Because after today, not another tear or sob would be shed because of my past. I vowed from this moment forward that I will be focused on the present and what that meant for those who stole my life. Revenge. Chapter 6. Nova Nix. As soon as the smug bastard walked into the tiny room I was held captive in and took a seat across from me, I snarled in outrage as I struggled in my restraints. Calm down, Pod, little wolf, I mean you no harm. Bullshit, I growled at him. Where are my brothers? Safe. The same way, safe. I motioned to my bound body with my head. Are they locked in the supply closet next door? His lips twitched. They've received adequate accommodations. They're alone. They're being well taken care of by some of the best nannies in town. I don't care if they're being taken care of by Nanny McPhee or Mary Poppins, I growled at him. I need to be with them. He leaned back in his chair, looking nonchalant. Unfortunately, you are not allowed to leave at the moment. Why the hell not? Because we have some things to discuss. He leans across the small table and places the same manila folder I'd seen in the interrogation of my mom in front of me. I thought you might like to see this. He flipped the first page open, and like a smack in the face, the DNA results were right there. The big ass heading glaring back at me. I swallowed the thick lump in my throat when my eyes scanned over the bolded words. No match found. So it was true. Mandy and Matthew Street. James weren't my biological parents. I glanced up to find him solemnly watching me. "We can run it again. In front of you. If you do," like he spoke before I said anything, "but just so you know. We've ran it 6 times already and the same result came back every time." "That doesn't change anything for me," I said, shaking my head. "They're still my family. She's still my mom." Instead of answering me, he flipped open the next page. I flinched back when I saw the pictures of an infant version of me, hooked up to oxygen machines and little tiny tips coming out of my mouth and nose. I knew I was born early, but I didn't realize just how early. I whispered mainly to myself, but of course Phoenix heard me. "Human infants don't survive being born that early," he hummed. My head snapped up from the pictures. "What do you mean human?" His fingers drummed on the tabletop. "Did you ever wonder why you survived at such a young age?" I didn't. Before I growled, "I didn't even know how bad I actually was." "Your mother never told you." He emphasized the word mother like it left a bad taste on his mouth. "Mom told me I was in the NICU for a couple of days," I said, shaking my head, "but she never got into too many details. It always made her cry to remember my time spent in there." He snorted at my words. "Care to enlighten me then?" I snarled at him, "Since you're apparently all-knowing. It's simple really," he shrugged. "You survived because you're not human." I blinked slowly at his words. "What? How else would you survive being born at 21 weeks with little to no cognitive or health deficits?" "Let's say that I believe you," I said slowly. "If I'm not human, then whatever the hell am I?" "You are a wolf shifter." "A what?" "A wolf shifter," he repeated slowly. "Like I was some kind of idiot. You have the ability to transform into a wolf at will." A brief moment of silence. "You're fucking nuts," I gaped at him. "Oh my god. I've been kidnapped by a delusional asshole." "An asshole?" "Yes," a second voice piped from the room's door, "but delusional he is not." I recognized that voice. I swung my gaze to the right and my blue eyes locked with vivid green ones. "It's you." I narrowed my eyes. "Of course you're in on it. Your over-interest in me was too suspicious to be true." He strode into the room, making such an already small space feel even smaller. "The council's ready for her now, Cassian," the deceiver announced as he leaned against the wall, his eyes never straying from me for too long. The asshole sitting in front of me frowned. "I haven't finished debriefing her yet. They decided that they're going to do it instead," Cassian said. "We're to prepare her for the academy after they're done." "Excuse me," I growled at both of them, making them snap their eyes towards me. "You can't just drop the fucking non." Cassian glanced at his friend in surprise. "You told her already?" Phoenix shrugged his shoulders, standing up in his chair and striding towards the door, never once looking back at me. Cassian sighed, peeling his body off the wall and pulling something from his back pocket. My eyes fastened on the weird-looking knife in his hand as he made an impressive show of flicking it open in a way that made me think this wasn't his first time handling a blade. I kept my eyes locked with his as he took a brief step towards me and then paused when the tips of his expensive shoes touched my slippers. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly, "and just going to untie you with a giant-ass knife." I snarked at, "How do I know you know how to safely handle that thing?" "Princess, I've been playing with knives since I was 6 years old." He grinned down at me. "I think I know a thing or two about safe handling." He squatted down on his haunches and quickly slid the blade against the rope, cutting the thick material clean from my restrained limbs. I rubbed at the red marks left behind. "Seems pretty irresponsible of your parents to be letting their school-age kid handle a knife," I murmured. He laughed, his eyes twinkling with mirth, as he stood and held out a hand to me. I ignored the hand, jumping out of my seat quickly before walking out of the door in front of him. Before I could make it far, his large hand dashed without close around my thin wrist, pulling me back against his muscular body. "If you run, they'll have no choice but to restrain you," he murmured close to my ear. "I've been given orders to make sure you're compliant." "Fuck your orders," I snarled, tugging my wrist out of his hand. "You don't own me. Neither does any other motherfucker in this building, including that prick you call a friend." Instead of letting up, his grip tightened fractionally. Word of the wise princess he knows skimmed my cheek. "I might like the way that smart mouth of yours utters those filthy words, but I can guarantee that the council won't. We heirs have a certain standard to uphold." I shivered at his words, cursing my body's response to his husky tone. What the hell is an heir? I shot him a glare. Why, we are silly, he said, letting me go as he strode past me, you and me. Not to mention Phoenix and Atlas. Atlas? The big guy that was with me the night we met. He glanced at me as I caught up to his long strides, the buzzkill that dragged me away from you right when I was starting to have some fun. I ignored his words, choosing to focus on what was important. I'm guessing that you're a werewolf, Joy stated simply, and the rest of your little bandwagon of merry men. Shifter, he corrected on a laugh, we're shifters, not werewolves. What's the difference? The difference is that werewolves can only transform when the moon is at its highest peak in the night sky. He explained they can only transform a few times a month, and even then, it's only for a couple of hours at most. They also tend to look like those stereotypical horror movie creatures. Shifters, on the other hand, can shift at will whenever they please. He said we don't need the moon to transform, and when we do transform, we take the shape of our wolves. Wolves like real wolves. I paused, thinking back to the big-ass wolf in my house before I was kidnapped. Wait, was that wolf in my house one of you guys? He inclined his head. That was Atlas. He growled at me, I exclaimed. No, he was warning you to stay put, Cassie and clarified, because if you ran and Nick's got a hold of you, it would have been a lot worse. We turned right in the large expansive hallway and were soon met with a wide set of double wooden doors. I gaped at the artistry put into those doors. For different sets of wolves and their stories depicted in equal square corners of the door's panels. The 4 of the 5 main pack's origin stories, Cassie and murmured to me, tapping at one pack in particular. This is my pack. I read the small pack inscription underneath his panel, the Lacoste back. And the 5th pack, Chapter 7, Nova Nix. His lips stiffened up in the corner as he grasped both handles of the door and pushed them open into a large pentagonal shape room. In each point of the room sat 5 throne-like chairs, all facing the small circular stage in the middle of the room. I glanced around, and while I knew there were people sitting in the 4 out of 5 throne-like chairs, I cowled and see their faces. You're going to be fine, Cassie and murmured softly, leading me towards the small platform. Just speak when spoken to and not a moment sooner. Any backtalk and they'll consider it disrespectful and punish you. I opened my mouth to say something when he shook his head firmly. We younger heirs might be more forgiving towards your attitude, but the older ones won't, he murmured, no matter how much power you have. What? He was stepping away from me and into the shadows before I could ask him what the hell he meant by that comment. A spotlight shined in a sneering man's face as he took me in from head to toe. I didn't need to know his name in order to know that Phoenix was definitely related to him. The resemblance was uncanny, even with the obvious age gap between the two. This is the girl. He directed the question to his son or the group around us, but not to me. She doesn't look like Wolf. My lips twitched at the name. Apparently my father's name was Wolf. A wolf shifter named Wolf. How freaking ironic and hilarious was that? She must take after her mother, someone murmured as the spotlight flashed above a stoic woman's face. I cowled and get a good look at her face because as soon as she stopped talking, the spotlight switched off and light up another member's face. He leaned forward in his throne-like chair, his fair hair gleaming underneath the light. Do we know who her mother was? No, a voice spoke out as the spotlight once again switched back to Phoenix's father. Wolf was very protective of her apparently. He wanted to keep her as far away as possible from this side of his life. Era ella un humano. A new voice asked in a heavy Spanish accent, es por eso que no quiera enviar Arla. Instead of standing towards the side of the throne like the other heirs were, Atlas was standing directly behind his father's chair, his usual expressionless face in place. Was her mother human? He translated, is that why he didn't want her involved? The spotlight turned back on to Phoenix's father, who shrugged at his fellow councilman's question. We've never had a chance to meet Wolf's mate, he said. The only reason why we knew about her in the first place was because he announced they were expecting and there would finally be a Lupine heir. A scoff sounded from the woman's direction, which had me eyes narrowing at her shadowed face. How do we even know if she's the real Lupine heir? She asked. Just because she has his eyes doesn't mean. Her blood was tested 6 times for confirmation. Phoenix finally spoke up. Quieting the council member, we made sure she was a Lupine before even bringing the issue forward to the Penta. Why, Su Lobo? Atlas' father asked. Yo se hawk on Bertai duen Su Lobo. Have you Atlas started to translate when I cut him off. No, I shook my head at the elder heir. I didn't even know what I was until 5 minutes ago. Alice's mouth dropped open in surprise. The first real emotion I've seen him display since getting here. He looked over at me in surprised puissant and Orel Spol. I nodded. The neighbor that used to babysit me and my brothers was Hispanic, I explained. She decided to teach us Spanish because it was not only easier for her to speak, but it was easy for her to speak one language to gather all her words together. Atlas' father leaned back in his throne, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. My eyes swung and I turned fractionally to where Phoenix's father was regarding me with a calculating glint in his eye. How much was my son able to share before the Last heir was sent to retrieve you? A low growl filled the air as the light shifted towards Cassian's father. Be careful with how you address our heir, his father said, for he is not an errand boy that simply fetches things at your will. He is an heir and deserves to be treated as such. Noted Michael. Phoenix's father rolled his brown eyes before turning them on me. Not only are you a wolf, but you are also an heir. The last Lupine heir in the world, to be exact. He nodded to the rest of the heirs as the light slowly lit up each and every person on the throne, their successors standing at their right hand. The last heir. My mouth gaped open. Does that mean that my family? Your father was killed in action 18 years ago during a mission gone wrong, Phoenix's father said. We never knew who your mother was, but we assumed she went with him because there were 2 bodies found burnt to a crisp in his room. One was a pregnant woman about the same number of weeks your mother would have been. So they were dead. I whispered, they're all dead. I don't have any family members left. Your grandfather died a few weeks ago. Cassian's father shot me a sympathetic expression right about the time we confirmed your identity. He lived a long, full life, 220 years of peace and prosperity during his reign. My eye widened as Cassian released a low chuckle at my expression. Atlas' lips twitched as Phoenix let out a loud sigh. We can live that long. Cassian's father inclined his head at my question. Then what happened to the rest of my family? Cursed. The lot of you, the stoic woman spit out, her eyes glaring daggers at me, which had my own marrowing. In return, a curse that will suffice if we don't eradicate you from our presence. Molly? Phoenix's father growled. Don't. It's true, TR, she growled back, pointing a bony finger at me. Chess, the reason why Wolf is dead. That's not true, Molly. Cassian's mother argued. Wolf died because our safe house location was compromised by the marksman. The woman glared at each and every member of the council before sitting back in her throne chair and crossing her arms over her chest. As I was saying, Phoenix's father turned his attention towards me. Since you're the last Lupine heir in existence, we deemed it necessary for you to be surrounded by your people. It was no longer in the best interest for our community if you remained unaware and defenseless outside of our reach in the human world. We needed you here, right where we can train and watch over you properly so that you can one day take over the title that is rightfully yours. Where is here exactly? I asked, trepidation lining my tone. Am I still in California? You're in our shifter community outside of the human realm, he said cryptically. While the location is not necessary for you to know, our community does still have the same necessities and technological advancements, if not more evolved, that the humans do. Whatever you need or want will be provided for you. And what about my people? I questioned. My friends, my family. People will notice that we're gone. Your friends will think you're at college. And in a way, they'll be right. Cassian's father said. You will be starting college. It's just not at where you originally applied, with a tad different curriculum. As for the street, James, they will be given adequate accommodations. You're going to release them? I asked hopefully. Can I see? He pursed his lips. We're not going to release them, sweetheart. Cassian's mother shot me a pitying smile. But we're not going to keep them imprisoned. They will remain under watch at one of your smaller estates in the countryside, thousands of miles away, in order to prevent you from losing focus from your studies. I blinked at her. One of my estates. Her lips twitched in amusement at my question. Yes, sweetheart, she smiled. Your estate. You are a multi-generational heir whose family has amassed a generous amount of wealth. Your family has always been on top of their game when it came to financial decisions or investments. As the Lupine heir, you are not only responsible for continuing that legacy, but are also responsible to use that wealth in order to take care of the packs underneath your control. Phoenix father raised a hand, cutting off Cassian's mother momentarily. But until you have learned our way and traditions, he said, and caught up to your studies, it was decided that the Penta will momentarily take over those responsibilities as our own. We will still debrief you regarding certain situations, but your main focus is to acclimate to our culture as seamlessly and flawlessly as possible. If I acclimate according to your standards, will I get to see my family at all? I asked. They are my family after all. Tia pursed his lips. How about you say goodbye to them today, and we evaluate this discussion in a few months. Father suggested we understand that this is a major adjustment for you, with finding out what and who you truly are. But we really need you to focus on your main responsibilities while at the academy. As much as it pains you to hear this, sometimes family can be the one thing holding you back from your true potential. I stared at each and every person in the room, more questions whirling through my mind. I could sense that this meeting was ending, and while I wanted to voice these questions out loud and demand for more answers, the lump in my throat wouldn't let a single syllable pass my lips. When no one else spoke, TR dismissed the Penta meeting with a wave of his hand. Before I had a chance to step off the stage myself, Cassian was once again there, holding a hand out to me. I gratefully took it, passing him a small smile. Before we could exit the room completely, TR's last words had my muscles tensing. Welcome home, Nova Lupine. He said, it's good to finally have you back where you belong.